Today's video is going to be a little different. We're not going to be looking at a gun today. We're going to be looking at this and how to modify it to load wax bullets for Cowboy Fast Draw. This is a Y-Tex ear tagger. From what I've heard, it was some of the Montana guys that figured this out. But in Cowboy Fast Draw, we use 45 Colt revolvers to shoot wax bullets. See if I can get this on camera easily. We shoot these wax rounds. There's a couple different manufacturers. These are from Cowboy Fast Draw Association, the orange ones. I do have some Spitfire hard ones, and I'm working on getting some of the yellow ones. Alright, the cases we shoot are modified 45 Colt cases. And if you realize, that's a pretty big primer hole there. These are designed to hold a 209 shot shell primer, and that's what propels the wax bullets downrange. They slide into the case like that. They shoot about 800 feet per second usually. Well, 600 to 800 feet per second depending on which primer you use. Now you can press these wax rounds in with your hand, and it kind of mushrooms off a little bit of wax on the outside, and they're flush. But it's fully legal in the competition. In fact, they usually do it for contests. If you seat these back inside the case a little bit, you gain a little bit of speed. There's a couple tools out on the market to do this. I made a couple out of dowel rods, and you press them in, but some of the cases are tighter than others, or if they're dirty. It takes a little bit of force to do it, and if you're trying to do it by hand and you got arthritis, you don't have a lot of hand grip strength, it gets a little tedious, especially if you're doing 100 or so at a time, or if you're loading for a competition, you're loading a lot of them. You know, 1,000 of these or so, it really wears you out. So somebody figured out that you could take one of these Y-Tex ear taggers and with a little bit of modification make you a bullet press. And see how this works. This has a needle here. It's attached to a metal plunger that plunges in pretty much straight up and down. It's a lot like a reloading press. It's just a smaller hand press basically. Now there's a little bit of modification you've got to do to make this work. So this needle has to come out, this clip has to come off, and this piece right in here, the little slot, has to be widened just a little bit so that the case will fit in there and out. So this needle here, this is the first thing we're going to remove, is this needle. And it's not too hard. You're going to need a pair of pliers and a file to do this, maybe a screwdriver. But you just grab it and twist it. It'll take a little bit of force. I did this, unscrewed it already once. But once you start it, it comes out pretty easy. It just unscrews. There's what the needle looks like. You don't need it anymore. After you unscrew it, get rid of it. Now the next piece you need to pull off is this piece here, the little ear tagger thing. It does have a pretty stout spring on one side, and it's held in with a metal cross pin. You can drift that pin out probably, but the easiest way that I know to do it is just get a pair of pliers or a screwdriver and pry that off until it pops out. Now don't do this pointing at you, because like I said, that's a pretty stout little spring in there. We're just going to grab it, get this on camera because I'm only going to do this once. I'm just taking this is a pretty heavy duty set of needle nose pliers, but I'm just sticking it underneath there, and I'm just going to pry that sucker off. I have. Well, popped off, almost did it. There it goes. You see it's off that pin. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. Going to wedge it in. See if I can grab it. screwdriver might be useful. Oh, there it goes. I don't know if you see it slipped off the other side. So you don't need that piece. You don't need the spring. It can go bye-bye. Now if you look, it's still a little bit tight. So you need to widen that little slot out a little bit. And you can do this a couple ways. We've done it with pocket knives. I got a file here. If you got a Dremel, you can Dremel it. I'm gonna do that off screen because it's gonna take a little bit of work. I'm probably gonna do it with the Dremel. I'm pretty handy with the Dremel. This Dremel's got the little flexi wand to it. Don't have one of those. You can do it without the flexi wand. Basically, what I'm going to do is I've got a triangle point burr, and we're just going to come in at an angle so it's flush and pretty much machine one side out, then machine the other side out. Now the trick with using a Dremel is use as light a touch as possible. You always go back and do it again, but if you take too much off, it's kind of hard to put it back on. After you enlarge this a little bit, whether you use a Dremel, a file, a pocket knife, or whatever, you see the case pretty much just slides in there. And now, when you press this down, it comes in pretty much just like a regular loading press. So you take your wax bullet, stick it on, press it down to the little ridge, that little easy load pellet, and then and now your wax round is seated. And that's pretty much it. That's all you got to do to it. These guys are about $40, $30 to $40 depending on where you get them, unless you happen to have one laying around. And that really does speed up your loading, especially if you're loading a lot of them. And they're all uniform, they're all the same depth, so that'll help with your consistency. That's all you gotta do. A little bit of modification, remove that needle, pull that little clamp off, and hollow out your spot a little bit. But that's it, pretty much it for this video. I'm hoping to do some primer speed testing. Having a little bit difficulty sourcing primers. Can't find any Rios or Fiocchi primers. I've got some Winchester 209 modern production primers that I'm probably going to end up using for the speed test. But like I said, I'm hoping to do that in a later video. I got a chronograph. I'm going to load some of these flush, and then we'll seat some using the tool. And I'm going to test them with probably the Winchester 209 primers, since I have those, over a chronograph, and see what the difference between the flush and the seated is. And then the Cowboy Fast Draw rounds, and I've got the red Spitfire high temp rounds, and I'm trying to get a hold of some of the yellow low temp rounds, the ones that look like frisbees when they hit. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all, if you get one of these, I hope this helps you do it. It's pretty easy. The worst part about this is having to machine out this little spot here, and I did it with the Dremel. I think the pocket knife thing works just as good. It just takes a little bit longer. You gotta just make sure you don't cut your finger, you know, sharp objects and stuff. If you got a wood chisel, you could probably cut it out with a wood chisel pretty easy. But that's it for this video.